this question is related to the topic, but I have to ask you about it. Are these Tabligh people are really following the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Who?
Tabligh people.
Tabligh, Jama'at Tabligh. Jama'at Tabligh, the first thing we say is Jazahumullahu khairan for the effort which they make to give da'wah. But we have a lot of comments concerning that. First, the idea of going out for 3 days, 40 days or 4 months has no basis in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And I remember, in my experience with Jama'at Tabligh, after the bayan would be given by someone, a brother would stand up with a pen and a piece of paper. Okay, brother, how many days?
3 days.
Now what happens to you? They make you feel that you're a criminal. All these people, and the people who go with them already, they've gone with them for, they say, 4 months. So they go around, you're the only one who says nothing. So out of shyness you say, 3 days. But you don't want to go on 3 days. And Allah did not reveal anything about you going out for 3 days. Yeah, you can give da'wah anytime, anywhere, however you like. Subhanallah, what is this confinement and restriction to the Sunnah? That's number one. So that idea is an innovation. Secondly, the book Fada'il A'mal, Fada'il Sadaqat, Tabligh Nisab are not good. They have some good material, but the books are not authentic. I've read them with my own eyes, 4 eyes. Well, back then I only had 2, before I started wearing glasses. The books have bad information. They teach you the wrong aqidah. They're Ash'ari in their aqidah, Sufi in their madhab, according to Tariqa, Naqshbandiyya, and whatever, the list goes on. So the books which they use are not reliable. Number 3, anyone gives a bayan. For 6 years he wasn't praying. They went to his house, gave him da'wah. The first day he comes to the masjid, the second day he's speaking to the people. The Prophet ﷺ said, you don't know, ya akhi. You yourself did not practice Islam until yesterday. You are not in a position to speak. And I've heard fabricated narrations until your mind gets jammed. If you shower while on khuruj, it's like performing 30 hajj. Where did they get this information from? So one sheikh gives, one of the elderly gives that bayan, they memorize it. Then when he gives bayan, he repeats the same information. They're lying against the Messenger of Allah. There's no knowledge. There's no correct knowledge. So all of these put together, besides the idea of having a sect, having a group, Jama'at Tabligh, you are either with us or against us. This idea of dividing the Muslims into group is not allowed in Islam. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبِّ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on to the rope of Allah altogether, do not separate and divide. So all of these combined make it unacceptable to go out with them, unless you are respected among them and you can go there to teach them. They have a lot of energy, which they just need to guide it. They need to put it in the right direction. If they use this time and energy to teach the people the correct deen, it will be excellent. Leave alone the 3 days and the 40 days, go for as much as you can. So we need to try to use their resources and time and effort and money and teach them how to truly give da'wah to the Sunnah. If you cannot do that, you're not allowed to go with them. Because the problems which they create are greater than the solutions which they bring. They give you da'wah to Salah, but you don't know who Allah is. And you have to begin with Tawheed. فَلْيَكُنْ أَوَّلْ مَا تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَيْهِ شَهَادَةُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. The first thing you should invite them to is the shahada of La ilaha illallah. They tell you Allah is the creator, Allah is the... We all know that. The kuffar knew that. Where is Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah? When their big sheikh, the one who authored some of their books, used to go at the grave site of some of the dead people and wait for wahi and inspiration from dead people. Their big sheikh, I forgot his name now, the one who, Zakaria, something, Ilyas, the one who invented Jama'at Tabligh, he used to sit at the grave and cover his head and wait to receive inspiration from a dead man in the grave. This is shirk, yeah. This is the leader of the group. So So these are facts. Now, we're not trying to attack, but we have to know the truth. We have to know the truth so we can fix it. We're not like saying, oh, they're going to go to Jahannam, they're one of the sects who the Prophet ﷺ said they're one of the 73 sects. Khalas, don't speak to me. These are people of innovation. Ma'as-salama. No. No. Come, brother. Yeah, akhi, you really want to get ajr from Allah? Then don't innovate. Get ajr by doing the sunnah. We teach them, we educate them, so we can integrate our effort. After they change. You don't change for them. They change for you. If they change for you, alhamdulillah. If not, you mind your business, they mind theirs. Nah, wallahu a'lam.
The next question is, churches like the Catholic Church have organized da'wah where they convert millions of people every year. What do the Muslims have to respond? Is it individual or collective?
The Christian groups have organized da'wah, sending out missionaries to different parts of the world. Many parts are Muslim world, and then they're converting people left and right. What do Muslims have? Do we have an equivalent World Council of Mosques where we send out missionaries? We don't have. Mostly it is a few institutions sending out, and mostly it is, after that, individuals who have some knowledge spreading the word. Is that the way it should be? No, it shouldn't be like that. Actually, we should be the most active in spreading the message. We should have the biggest organizations in spreading the word. We have the truth. They have falsehood, and they are working night and day, learning the languages of tribes and clans in different parts of the world just to go live amongst them, to carry what they consider to be the word of God to these people. Dedication. For us, it's like, mashallah, ma'alish. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We have Jamaat Tabligh, the biggest da'wah organization in the world. Jamaat Tabligh, with the largest number of followers. When they have their yearly ijtima' in Bangladesh, 4 million followers gather. And at the end of the ijtima', they make a group dua, which people, you just don't want to miss that group dua, for guidance for the world. But when you talk to the people from Jamaat Tabligh, their philosophy is you must clean up your house before you invite people in. I mean, there are other issues. I'm just talking about this perspective. You must clean up your own house before you invite people into it. So they say, we shouldn't be going out and giving da'wah to non-Muslims. We should focus on Muslims, make them proper Muslims, and then we can invite them in. So the non-Muslims, in spite of their huge numbers, very little da'wah being given to them, to non-Muslims. So they play a role in terms of inviting Muslims back to the masjid, etc. MashaAllah. We have to recognize there's goodness in it there from that perspective. But da'wah, no. So we can't say there are people doing it in an organized fashion around the world. So this is part of the challenges. And it is actually a reflection of the state of the ummah. We are fragmented into different countries with our own individual anthems and flags and nationalism. And this is, of course, a state which the Prophet ﷺ cursed when he said, "Man da'a ila al-asabiyya فَلَيْسَ مِنَّا. People who call to exclusivism, whether it is a group or a clan or a region, a city or a country, etc. This is not from Islam. Islam is about humanity, the ummah, the whole ummah. That's what Hajj is about. That's the message of Hajj. Islam is the world.
والله يدعو إلى دار السلام ويهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم.
Brother Sayyid from the United Arab Emirates, he said, I went with a certain group called Jamaah Tabligh. I went to spend several days out with them in different mosques, calling to Allah. Spent 10 days once and 3 days another time. I really felt good while doing this, giving da'wah to people, calling them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, recently I've been told by a friend of mine that this is not from the Sunnah, this is not from what the Salaf Salih did, this is not from something the Prophet did. What do I do? I'm confused. How do I go about to carrying on my tasks?
First of all, brothers and sisters, this ummah, the ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a praiseworthy ummah, and it was praised in the Quran. Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained the reason. He said, you are indeed the best ummah sent to mankind. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. Why? He began by saying, تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. To emphasize on the importance of giving da'wah. You enjoin what's right and you forbid what's evil. What's da'wah? Da'wah is all about enjoining what's right and forbidding what's evil. Al-amru bil-ma'ruf wa-nahy al-munkar. And by the way, a da'wah is an issue which is mandatory on every single Muslim, male or a female. There is no distinction between a scholar and an ordinary person. Everybody must give da'wah, everyone according to their capacity and according to their limit of knowledge and how much they have access to give da'wah. But the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in 2 ahadith, which these 2 ahadith do not exempt anyone from giving da'wah. The first, in a sound hadith, مَنْ رَأَى مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. Whoever of you sees something wrong, evil, mistake, a sin, let him change it. It is mandatory upon you to change it. By any of these methods. The first one is biyadi, and the hand in this first category refers to authority. If you are an authoritative person, if you are an official, if you were given this power, you must stop this munkar which you see under your guardianship. What if you can't because you don't have the authority? Then bilisanih, enjoining what's right and forbidding what's evil by giving the advice, the sincere advice. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in the hadith of Tamim ibn Ams al-Dari, ad-din al-nasiha. Deen is all about paying the sincere advice. Then the third, that if you don't have the power of giving a lecture or preaching, of enjoining, or you're afraid that if you say anything goes to harm greater than the munkar itself, then the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the last category, something that did not leave anyone that could be exempted from giving da'wah. By saying, فَبِقَلْبِهِ وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. By condemning the munkar, by your heart. By wishing that the Muslim state will prosper and the salah will be offered on time and people will deal in halal transaction, by your heart. If you can neither change it or give da'wah by the hand or by the authority or via speaking about it, then at least by your heart. So there is no specific jama'ah that's taking care of this business. But there are scholars who have a greater duty of informing people about what's right and what's wrong. Then there is muftis who are in charge of giving the fatwa with regards to haram and halal. So the issue of going out to give da'wah is the job of every Muslim, not just specific people. How? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prays in the Quran those who take upon themselves this task by saying, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَى إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. And who is better in a statement than one who is دَاعِي إِلَى اللَّهِ, دَعَى إِلَى اللَّهِ, and عَمِلَ صَالِحًا, and he himself is doing good righteous deeds, and he proclaims that I'm just one of the Muslims. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the Quran was commanded, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِ أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. Say, this is my way. I call unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on proper understanding, insight, me and those who follow me. So if you are a true follower of a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then automatically you're following his footsteps on the path of giving da'wah. So everybody must give da'wah. That for going out to give da'wah, may Allah bless you and the brothers who go out with you. But I just have a friendly advice. And next time, brothers and sisters, we don't have to name people and say Tabligh Jamaah or this or this or that. The advice is general, is for myself and for others. We used to receive the Tabligh Jamaah in the States, in North America, in Europe, and they're still doing this. So whenever they come, many of them, we speak to the Amir, that you can always come and you can always go and visit people, but with the Islamic etiquette, such as there is nothing that is called that you have to go out every month for 3 days, or 40 days per life, or 4 months per year. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not state that at all. And your conclusion of some verses or some understanding of the hadith is not a strong reference to mandate the 3 or the 40 or the 4 based on these references. So you can always give da'wah whenever. And if people are going out, traveling to another locality or another community to give da'wah, that's perfectly fine, as long as we're not making any innovation. This is number one. Number two, the etiquette of giving da'wah is derived from the Quran and the Sunnah. So, we're not abide by a single book or by the statement of any person other than the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I held against some people that they have been stuck to one book, such as a book which just the sister mentioned, was talking about the privileges and the virtues of certain acts. And she said the tasbih, and she said it's stated that in Sahih Muslim. It's not in Sahih Muslim. It is a weak hadith. So why do we rely on weak hadith while we have thousands of sound hadith? Why don't we just study Al-Bukhari or Muslim or Riyadh al-Salihin, the Garden of the Pious, the 40 Nawawi hadith, etc. The sound hadith, and study the tafsir and study the sound fiqh without being rigid to a certain madhab or certain school of thought. So if we expand a little bit to cover and include other opinions and rely on our references on the sound hadith, and we only allow the scholars to speak, it is perfectly fine to have supporters. People who go out, convince people you should stop smoking, and convince another person who does not pray. Share with him your experience, that how did you come to Iman, how did you start practicing Salah, and the importance of leaving your business whenever it is Friday prayer. It is perfectly fine. But who should speak and give the lecture? A knowledgeable person. And you should be a role model yourself. So it is not possible to listen to somebody who has a convenience store, but he's going out to give da'wah. He's selling beer, but it is very fixed in his life that every month he has to go 3 days to give da'wah. Does it make any sense? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَى إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. That you have to practice what you preach, or otherwise you'll be condemned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لِمَ تَقُولُونَ ما لا تفعلون كبر مقتا عند الله أن تقولوا ما لا تفعلون. It could be a wonderful opportunity, as many of our brothers, mashallah, now they started doing that. When they collect people and they travel to a specific locality, it is not because it's a must to travel 3 days every month. Rather, we'll take it as a journey to visit our brothers in another community for the sake of Allah. And when we stay in the masjid or stay in somebody's house, we spend this time in getting to know one another, in visiting people for the sake of Allah, in studying the Quran and the sound Sunnah. So it will be wonderful if we have a scholar with the group who teach them, or we go to visit a scholar so that we have a crash course in a specific science of the deen. These are my friendly and brotherly, lovely advices to my lovely brothers, whom I don't have any doubt that, inshallah, they're sincere in their intention. And Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Kindly comment on the practice of Jamaats, group of people traveling to various masjid for prescribed number of days. You mean the Tabligh? Jamaat Tabligh. Jamaat Tabligh, may Allah reward them with goodness. Yani, they make a lot of effort for da'wah, an effort which many Muslims may not make, and that is appreciated. However, the justice requires that we say the truth. At least the ones I've dealt with, I've went out with back in my early days of practicing, and the ones I've come across, I don't know if you know other people, there are a lot of errors, innovations, shirk-related ideologies that are very common and popular among them. Okay? So one has to be careful. That's the first problem. The usual aqidah of the Tablighi is not of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Usually it is Ash'ari Maturidi. And I've had personal confrontations, if we may call it, with them. And I almost lost my life in the masjid with the brothers who were the kindest people to me moments before, until we spoke about where Allah is. And then suddenly I became the enemy of Islam. And I was responsible for all the killings and all the bombings in the world. Because I said Allah is above the creation. Okay, that's my own personal experience. I hope you haven't had something similar. So in terms of aqidah, usually it's not sound. Usually they are hardcore Hanafi, and they will not entertain any other position. Knowledge is not very important. They have their own 6 principles. And sound knowledge is not a condition in a sense. It's the knowledge of the kibar, or the elderly, the elders. The elders said, and the elders may read the Tablighi Nisab or Fada'il A'mal and Fada'il Sabaqat, which are full of fabricated narrations, and they teach the fabricated narrations to the people memorize them, they give bayan with other fabricated narrations, and it's an ongoing disaster. And we know that in Islam you must have knowledge before you give da'wah. Yes, everyone has to give da'wah, and inviting people to Salah is extremely important, but it doesn't have to be done in a fashion where you go for 3 days or 40 days or 4 months, because this is not part of the deen. You give da'wah all the time, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 350 some days a year, according to the Hijri year, not the Gregorian. So, there are some comments on them, but again, like I said, yes, many people have been guided through them. So we ask Allah to reward them with goodness, pardon their shortcomings, but if they're hearing me or if anyone belongs to them, we don't need any more groups. We don't need Jama'at Tabligh and Ikhwan, and we don't need names, and we don't need titles, and we don't need division of the Ummah. We all need to adhere to the Quran and the Sunnah according to the understanding of the righteous predecessors. Khalas. Whatever they didn't do, we don't do. They didn't celebrate Mawlid, we don't celebrate Mawlid. They didn't go for 40 days, you don't go for 40 days. They didn't like fabricated narrations, we don't like fabricated narrations. I mean, it's very basic. So that's my advice concerning them. Don't go with them unless you're a student of knowledge and you can go and guide them and teach them, and you find the willingness among them that they're willing to respond to you and accept, then go and rectify their condition, because they're going to go with or without you. At least go and try to teach them the correct thing. If they're not going to listen to you, or you don't have the means to stop them, don't go with them. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Shadu an la ilaha illa